Hello guys, welcome to Africa Gossip Arena. So guys, right about now I'm going to be talking about the trendy rumor right now in Nigeria about the Igbo tribe, which is the southeast part of Nigeria. So guys, due to the fact that the Nigerian government, Mazi Nnamdi Kalu and Sam Ekpa are having a serious long ahead over the years for the division of Nigeria, so that the southeast part of Nigeria, which are the Igbo speaking tribe of Nigeria, can have their own country called Biafra, in which Simon Ekpa and Mazi Nnamdi Kalu are actually in detention right now because of the process of agitating for their own country called Biafra to be break out of Nigeria. But although guys, a lot have been happening ever since the Biafra in exile have their convention in Finland last week. Because during the convention, the Biafra agitators unveiled their 39 states and capital, in which Edo State was actually mentioned as one of their states that have actually sparked a lot of reaction and serious questioning in Edo State, due to the fact that some of this generation now don't actually know where the Igbo speaking tribe were migrated from in Nigeria. Although the Oba of Benin Kingdom actually know the story of how the Igbo were actually migrated from Edo State to Onitsha to wherever they are today in the world. Because ever since the Biafra make mention of Edo State as one of the states during the Biafra convention in Finland, a lot of rumors have been going around that the Edo people and the Igbo people are not anywhere related at all. But this time, guys, the Obi of Onitsha, His Royal Majesty Igwe Nnemeka Achebe, the Obi of Onitsha, the Uzuzu of Onitsha Kingdom, have this time come out to explain how the Igbo actually migrated from Ile-Ife, Osun State to Edo State, where they stay for some while and settle with their family before they will later find their homeland in Onitsha, where they actually are today. Anyway, let me leave you to watch this video to the end to see what Obi of Onitsha actually said about the Igbo migration and what actually happened when they get to Edo State that actually made them to locate their own homeland in Onitsha. So guys, feel free to drop your opinion on the comment section about the Igbo migration. And if this is your first time of seeing this channel, please do well to hit on the like button, subscribe, and don't forget to turn on your notification bell.
Edmond Afonyo, in his own inaugural lecture, we'll talk about Igbos in Kano. And of course, he badly misrepresented the Igbo presence and the history of the Igbos in Kano in the way Anyimundi Igbo sees. And immediately, Dr. Sam Amadi gave a lecture, like a response to that lecture by Professor Bako. And Sam Amadi said that forgetting is dying. If you forget, if you pass away, then you are not existing. The self-awareness and other awareness are most important aspects of existence. And it says, when we forget events and their meaning, expose ourselves to deception by competitors and our enemies. When we forget events and their meanings, we expose ourselves to deceptions by our competitors and our enemies, which is what Dr. Bako has tried to do. Tried to deceive people about Tunde. And of course, Sam Amadi rose up to that. More to say on why we must pay attention to our history. Ajele Afiwo, our great historian, said, the Igbo people, like any other group of people, are anxious to discover their origin and to reconstruct how they came to be where they are. Why are we here? Why are we not in the Niger Delta or in the desert? Here, we're making our life here. Their experiences under colonialism and since Nigeria's independence have emphasized for them the reality of their group identity, which they want to anchor into authentic history. So the war has made us realize, or should make us realize, who we are, and to value it and hold it very dear. Finally, one more quote, or such a quote actually, but it's a narrative. During the war, Second World War, Sir Winston Churchill was the Prime Minister of Britain. And he kept saying to the British people on his radio broadcast every evening that the most important reason why Britain must defeat Germany in the Second World War is that it is the winner who lives to write history. And Britain and America wrote the history of the Second World War. Germany was the bad guy. Okay? But Germany fought back. Not by writing history, but with technology. So today, the German economy is far bigger and stronger than the British economy. Why we must open our eyes? Colonialism. Colonial people wrote the history of colonialism in Nigeria. And even those things they wrote, we used it to do our exams, our certificate exams, and so on. Thankfully, there's a new book, it's out for about 3 years now, by Max Leon. And the title is What Britain Did to Nigeria, the History of Conquest and Rule. It's a counter-history to colonial history, using the same sources that the colonial people used. From the crown agents, from the colonial office, and digging out information that were hiding there. You put the damage that Britain did to Nigeria, particularly Igbo. They took over the north, controlled it, and the west, but they couldn't figure out Igbo. Asaba, Ekumeku, Nyoma. They couldn't figure it out. They couldn't figure it out. So they wrote a history which you have to respond to. That book is very useful if anybody can get it and read it. And nearer home, the Civil War. Who is writing the history of the Civil War? Already also. I am Abunde Ajomadu, right? Who are the rebels and so on. So, if you don't fight for yourself, your enemies will write your own history the way it suits them, which is very, very important, which is the very reason why the repository, the Igbo repository, becomes very important. Not only in this, because there are other institutions where such efforts are being made. And we have to all work together. And stand tall. And what we're going to talk about today will show you the most well compared to the others. So, the origin of Igbo, there are 3 broad hypotheses. Okay? The Vice Chancellor mentioned one of them already, the autochthony hypothesis, which says that Igbo, where we are today, now, either Eri or whatever name we call it, Zataya, and became the father of Igbo, where we are today. Yorubas have their own equivalent, that's to do what's anywhere, but we know where the work came from, and they know where the work came from. I will address a bit of that today. So that is one theory about the origin of Igbo, and the antiquity of Igbo tend to support that theory in some way. The second hypothesis is the internal migration hypothesis that says that Igbo were at some stage, that is thousands of years ago, at the confluence of the Niger and the Benue around Lokoja. And that Igbo, and the Yoruba, and the Edo, Benin, the Juku were all one people until the point of the discovery of iron and all of that, the Sebo, and then they migrated to where they are today. That's the second theory. And people like Richard Henderson, people like Okonkwo, proposed that theory. Then, of course, the external migration theory that says that Igbo see either Egypt or Israel. I think there's say more about Israel. And people like Basden, G.T. Basden, and Paul Eluwa hold that theory. But we shall show with the studies of modern scholarly approach, modern scholarly research, discount this hypothesis. Because somebody like Catherine actually has stated, with good reason, that Igbo actually predates Egypt and Israel. So you cannot originate from where you predate. Maybe you could do the other way around. So those are the three hypotheses. Now, whatever the hypothesis one believes, one thing is very clear. Antiquity of Igbo, established. Now, pottery, earthen pottery, from around 3000 BC, have been excavated at Nsukka in 1970. Earthen pottery. Iron smelting at Nsukka and Afikpo existed, that is, smelted iron had been excavated with carbon testing to be as old as 750 years BC and 2000 years BC, OP 750 and later 2000 BC. And of course, we now know about the Igbo bronze and artifacts which were excavated in our present generation, which dates as far back as to the 9th and 10th century AD. Ife is 12th and 13th century, and Benin is 14th century. So the Igbo artifacts are older than Ife and Benin. So that's why I said earlier on, Nsukka and Afikpo were probably at the beginning of the Iron Age. At the beginning of the Iron Age, from the Stone Age to Iron Age, which is why Nnamdi went back to the foundation of iron technology and set up a university there. Another point about Igbo antiquity. This is some cause controversy. After this lecture, I expect there to be some media reaction. But we prepared a press release. Cover what I said as much as possible. Prof, I hope we have the press release ready now. Okay, thank you very much. In recent times, the Oni of Ife has made statements that Igbo came from Ile-Ife. Made that statement several times. Igbo Jenfran, I don't know, no, buying this web. But they didn't say when Igbo got to Ile-Ife before they left, when the Yorubas left, arrived in Ile-Ife. But it is well established that Igbo were in Ile-Ife long before the Yorubas arrived there. Established. And the authorities that I'm quoting are more Yoruba than anybody else. Igbo were there and dominated Ile-Ife. Today, there's a village in Ile-Ife, which is the remnants of Igbos who didn't migrate away. Because the story was that Igbo were there, dominated Ile-Ife, until the Yorubas came. Then, by cordial relationships and all of that, Ewesibo to succeed, or and so on. Igbo were claiming it's their rights, Yorubas and so on. And Igbo started attacking the Yoruba elements. When they did more, they used masquerades to attack them. The Yorubas thought they were spirits. We were afraid until Moremi offered herself as a slave woman to the Igbo group. And they presented her to the king of Igbo. As she found secrets and more abroad spirit, and gave the story back to their people. And they defeated Igbo. Then migration coming back. That is the significance of Moremi in Yoruba history. That's why they call her a heroine, because she saved them and they dominated the whole place. Today, in Ile-Odua, which is the palace of the Oni of Ife, the ancient throne of the Igbo king is still there, and it's part of their ceremonies. And they have an annual ceremony which they call the AD, it is ceremony, which marks the defeat of Igbo, and they are returned home. It's an annual ceremony. So a scholarly article on that. I'm not talking about them. These are all references that I'm quoting. Of course, Reverend Samuel Johnson, The History of Yoruba People, it's a big volume. Eluwa, Igbo, Aremu, Ijesakin, and Ademili are Yorubas. They wrote this scholarly article on the annual festival. Professor Ade Obayemi, who is one of the top Yoruba historians, and of course Oba himself, in the disputes between Ooni of Ife and Ulubo of Igbo lands. Ife people claim that Moremi is their heroine. Ulubo said she's a traitor, that she was the one who revealed the secret that led them to get away, and that Igbo were in Ile-Ife before the Yorubas arrived. Oni said no. Igbo, IGBO, were there before Yorubas arrived, before Oduduwa arrived. In public, in print. So what is the difference between Ugbo and Igbo? That's another discussion, another time. But Igbo, which is in Okitukwa, in other state, are probably part of that Igbo movement that left Ile-Ife. They stay on their own and so on and so forth. So to summarize on Igbo history, before we go into Onitsha, it's clear that according to Kati National, that Igbo had existed as far back as 11,000 years BC. And that was 7,000 years before the first king of Egypt, who was a black man. So you can figure out where he came from. Secondly, we've talked about Osuka and Afikpo, and they support the autochthony hypothesis. Then, of course, the internal migration suggests that Igbo, Yoruba, Edo, Jukun, and so on and so forth had an ancestral connection before they broke away. And if they did, why don't you go back and re-establish that connection? Because in Nigeria today, only open an actual 1 year. So we have to rediscover our connections and build a platform to address our own challenges and so on. So we'll come back to Onitsha. And I'm okay for Onitsha. 9 years the Chima features very prominently in the founding of Onitsha, and of course a whole lot of other communities. On the Enuani and the Yoma side, there are probably about 19 communities that are displaced descent from Shima. On this side, many more. There are four versions of how Onitsha came to exist. Okay. One is from Esaibosa. On the history of Onitsha. And the Onitsha were part of they were Edo people, and then Esedogu, and they migrated, okay, led by Chima. Okay. Eluwa, who wrote the book Adonidu, claims that the Onitsha were part of that return migration, or that migration of Igbo when they left Ile-Ife. And I guess so they stopped in the name for several centuries and they continued their migration. The third hypothesis, which comes from Iselu, is a book, History of the Iselu Kingdom. Now, Chima was the 5th king of Benin. Chima was 5th king of Iselu. But his father was the 4th, his grandfather was the 3rd, the great-grandfather was the 2nd, then the first king of Iselu was the son, the second son of Oba the first of Benin. Which means that Benin kingdom, Oba sent his son, second son, to go and form a new kingdom as a defense against the Gala and Igbo attackers. That is their claim. That's how Iselu got established. And that Onitsha is the 5th king of direct descent from Eweka the First. Now it gets interesting because Eweka the First is the son of Oramion, who is the son of Oduduwa, established. And this Benin people now claim that very clear. since the new Oba came onto the throne. So there are linkages which we need to figure out. That's the point I'm making. And in all of this, Benin features very, very actively. And of course, the fourth migration was actually narrow, because the Arrows were itinerant people migrating from one place to the other. Arrow medicine man went to Benin, established himself, became a successor to the king. Then there was a disagreement and he came back. Okay. But then, if you go through the history, you'll find that the Shima era existed before the know of the Arab migration. There's an Arab migration westwards and then came back again. So, which of them? There are also a lot of consequences in terms of, if you look at all these four theories. I discount the Arab hypothesis. But SI Bosa, Abdi Eluwa, Adan Benin, I migrated, and then of course Iselu, that I put Iselu originally, but migrated from Benin. By the way, after Chima reigned, Iselu went into crisis. Azolo to replace him went into crisis, which led to the migration of Oreze coming back to form Onitsha. But then other people from Iselu went to found other communities, Sele Zaba, Sele Pitima, Onitsha, Lona, etc., etc. Okay. But one thing is constant, that there was a migration from Benin. Okay. So the Oreze group then arrived, got across, settled down. Okay. So we're looking at Onitsha now. From the time Oreze settled, which is people, followed by Chimevi, followed by other kings, up to Aroli. So Oreze was the beginning of Onitsha, settling down. Aroli took it to the next level, and I look at the third level now when Christianity and colonialism came up to the present time. Now, the components of Onitsha don't need to, which is Onitsha. The components, first of all, is the core group that Chima led up to whatever it was. And Oreze now led them across. And I was Mwezi Chima, comprising of Isiokwe, Olos, Mwezi Arodi, and Okenabo. Okay. Of Mwezi Chima and Onitsha. The second group, Burundi Bayazo, the migration along the way. All came up together and all had their functions. Ugunobamba, Ken Benin, and all of that. The third group, the Gala, on the waterfront, who helped to ferry them across. They now constitute three villages, two villages, Obiboro, Obotu, and Welekeke. Obiboro is also a Gala, but it's all their father, the Gala, that married the daughter of Ezaroli. Then the fourth group, Betazin Onitsha. Onisizi and Igbo also was particularly, and Endorse a lot. Ogidi, Ubosi, and all of that. All of us are now integrated into Onitsha, what we know today, 4 different groups, but into one. That's what we are today. Okay? And then, of course, in that discussion from I mentioned there were 19 communities on the western side of the Niger, Enuani and Anyoma, that Burundi, who claimed descent from Shima. And then on the eastern side, well, our board is also on the western side, but from Onitsha, movements, they went to Buta and founded Buta. And his other brother went to Abo and founded Abo. So all of that constitutes Umwezi Shima, as we know today. But there's more. There's more. Because on the eastern side of the Niger, on the Shangwa, Deputy Governor, are you hearing me? I will on Shangwa. On the Shuboma, on the Shami, Isukwato, they're all in Abia State. Onitsha. And usually, those people always see themselves as slightly different from the larger community around them. In Jena, Imo State, I'm very familiar with that one. On the Shudo, Nambise, and on the Shamkwere, the put in Imo State. And Ebony State, on the Shahozara, on the Shaeza, on the Hozara, on the Sheba, and of course, the Enugu State, on the Jago. So, that's what I'm trying to say. We are dispersed, over the place. What are the connections between with all these Onitshas, with the Shima dynasty? These are questions that should be answered. This is why we need this center for Igbo repository. So we're going to do research, we're going to do more research, do more inquiries, go on the spot, look at the artifacts, do excavations, and find out the historical connections, and so on and so forth. We need to know. There's more. In Yoruba land, in Oyo State, and well, 4 communities that are spelled Onitsha, O-N-I-S-A. We know in Yoruba, O-N-I-S-A is called Onitsha. So in Oyo State, there are 4 communities. In Oyo, 4 communities. Ogomosho, 3 communities. Ogun State, 1. Osun State, 1. Are there any connections with Onitsha and Kaimau? Or is it a creation of their own, or whatever it is? We need to inquire. Find out how those people got to where they were. Because when Ife broke up, people migrated in different directions. Okay? People migrated in different directions. So it could be that these people went on their own way, where the main group was going, but we need to find out. We need to know, which is why research is important. So we fast track then to back to Onitsha itself. Okay, I've talked about the arrival of Oreze as the beginning of the foundation of Onitsha town, Onitsha community, Onitsha Donidu, or Onitsha Mili as we know it today. The next level was Ezra Raleigh, who came from Igala and brought Igala royal traditions, which are far more sophisticated, moving to the next level. And the third, of course, I said, was the arrival of Christianity and colonialism. And both of them arrived in the same vessel in 1857, the day spring, okay, which started at Onitsha, under Obi Akazua. Okay. Just to fast track, between 1863 and 1888, the colonial government or the colonialists extracted at least four treaties, a few more, but 4 major treaties from the Onitsha, traditional rulers, on the suppression of slave trade, on the prevention of human sacrifice, on the opening and encouraging of legitimate trade, on the protection of Christian missionaries, and on the cession of title. They took our land, we just signed and put our government. And then, finally, on the protection by the colonial government, which is what became a protectorate, became part of the protectorate. As we're getting the treaties from us, they're doing the same in Asaba, doing the same in Opanam, doing the same in all the other communities. See? Once the colonialists were doing their own bits, trying to browbeat us and subjugate us, the Christians were also spreading Christianity. The CMS mission, I said, arrived in 1857 on the day spring. Ajayi Crowther, J.C. Taylor, and Simon Jonas. Ajayi Crowther were Yoruba, J.C. Taylor, and Simon Jonas were Igbo. Slaves that were saved from the slave ships, taken to Sierra Leone, educated, and then they became missionaries and they came. And of course, they settled in Onitsha. Onitsha became the base for the Anglican CMS mission to spread Christianity up the north into the Middle Belt, the south to Niger Delta, east and west, and so on. And Onitsha became the seat Ajayi Crowther eventually became bishop of what eventually became the whole territory of Nigeria, except Lagos, Ibadan, and Abeokuta, that were under the diocese of Sierra Leone, Freetown, Sierra Leone. So Onitsha became the headquarters of the CMS mission in the whole of Nigeria, under Ajayi Crowther. And following that was C.J. Patterson. Again, Onitsha, Christ Church Onitsha, their thrones, became the Archbishop of West Africa from Onitsha, ruling the whole of West Africa African Communion. So Onitsha began to acquire status with the church. Of course, many of our people became pioneers, missionaries, including Reverend Yemunam, Bishop Nyabo, and so on. As if by magic, 28 years later, the Catholic mission arrived at Onitsha. Again, made Onitsha their base from where they spread Christianity. Reverend Father Lutz, then Bishop Shanahan, then Bishop Hiri, and so on and so forth. So Onitsha had been fortunate because with Christianity came education. So Onitsha people became, again, early beneficiaries of modern education. And of course, behind that also came medical services. But of course, there are backlashes because Christianity now says that polygamy is not the right thing to do. So, if you want to become a Christian, I think you should turn in Monday or something well and marry only one, the first wife, and all of that. And that's created a pushback, from some of our people. A few other things that were demanding by an authority and so on. Onitsha, big challenge Christianity had, one, also Onitsha. We still have issues, but we're in dialogue. Asking me like you night, no. You see, the pastor of each of issues of Super night. So it's normalizing. And one of our very ardent Catholics, Ibu Tiopa Lule Abefa, and it was torn between was torn between that and his Christianity. He went to the Archbishop, Hiri. He sent out to the film. So they took a video of us. I went to Rome and presented it to the Pope. Pope said, I don't see anything wrong with that. So also goes to and it's very fundamental to our spiritual beliefs. Okay. Second book equals Mpanabo, which again we've explained to the church. If you dialogue, you get understanding, and sometimes even our spirits cause a problem. But Onitsha became the foundation, and Onitsha benefited on the back of the Christian schools, particularly the secondary schools, CKC, DMGS, QRC. Entry was very competitive. What happened? Private schools sprang up. New Bethel College, Africa College, Our Ladies High School, Washington Memorial, Etuku Memorial, Zik Institute, New Era. So many. Onitsha became the mecca for people who are seeking for secondary education from everywhere. So, Onitsha, who are military commanders, who are governors of states and everywhere, in the north and everywhere else. I also call take over Nigeria. So it has benefits. Okay. So we come to our culture. I'm just rushing because I don't want to hold you too long. Onitsha culture today and our traditions have four roots. Edo, which is Benin, Igala, Igbo, and then our own self-originated elements of cultural behavior, our norms and practices. Okay. Edo, our rare traditions come from Edo and Igala, mixed Edo and Igala. Okay. Ifuru, Abani, Dupetalo, Asawa. That is very much Edo symbolism, okay, which we have also. Certain other elements, which is Igala. Our spiritual beliefs our traditional spiritual beliefs are largely Igala and Igbo. Largely Igala and Igbo. Ndị Onitsha, more Afia, Mogonogo, Igala. We know the spiritual symbolism of Mogonogo. Now, Saba, Obu, Ebuku. Ebuku is equivalent for us. And the interesting thing, now, Lagos, well, Eyo, which they call Ebuku also, and other Yoruba areas have Eyo. And Eyo, Yoruba land, commands the same respect as Ebuku and Asaba, as Moafia and Onitsha. So there's some connection there. Then our social system is largely Igbo by acculturation. Okay? And then, of course, we have our own self-generated, internal-generated elements of our culture and tourism. Then, of course, our governance and jurisprudence is largely Edo. So, Ndishiani, okay, Israel Edo, same titles of Ndishiani are repeated or copied from there. Asaba has some equivalents, Esebuku has some equivalents, and so on and so forth. And the functions of Ndishi are similarly the same. And of course, as we say, culture is never constant. It keeps moving and keeps evolving. Okay. I'll talk about our political system very quickly and our judicial system. Political system, our monarch, Igwe, is at the peak of it. Supported by Ndishi, who we refer to today as the political heads of their various villages, etc. Ndishi originally were the warlords to protect our boundaries. By word of mouth, Jekot and all that. But they're the political heads of their various communities. And we meet together at the Council of Ndishi, where we discuss issues of the community under the monarchy, under the monarch. I was also yesterday, we had a 4.5 hours meeting yesterday. That's normal. Okay. Today we have 24 Ndishi, but the total number we have is 52. And those are established positions, established by our ancestors, which I can't even change. I can't add or subtract. If there are vacancies, we fill them in the fullness of time. Okay. And Ndishi in 3 categories. Ndiume, the Madisi, and each of them looks after 1/6 of Onitsha. They are the first class chiefs. Then, of course, Diokwa at the next, Diokwa Rez at the third class. All of us have our duties and so on. On the other side, when the Diopa are the spiritual heads of their villages and their communities, etc. So when you share Onitsha, his village, spiritually subject to Diopia. So I don't want to, if Onitsha, Diopa is subject more, Diopa. I have to respect him as my Diopa. And I respect him as his Onitsha. Okay. Then other groups, constituent groups, Onitsha Improvement Union will celebrate its centenary next year. Actually, it was due this year. We'll celebrate it early next year. They're 100 years old. Doing what other town unions do. Okay. It was founded in Lagos, actually, as a welfare organization until they came back home, and so on and so forth. Our 8 great societies perform very distinct roles on Onitsha. Depending on their age, the youngest ones do the job of protecting the community. As we go older, and the older ones then join Ndishi in governance of the community. They are balance. Also, some of them are here. Each also is a spiritual anointing. It cannot be Onitsha, it cannot be Onitsha. So that's the significance of also Onitsha. It's a stepping stone to spirituality, our traditional spirit, to rise to higher levels. ndị ọdụ ndị otu ọdụ na ebe n'ụwa from their own social functions n'Ọnịcha ọfancha ndị okenye a sị na ihe ọzọ na egbu ọdụ n'Ọnịcha okenye erughị means you can ekwu eziokwu you not engage in anything that is not proper and you provide leadership. That's what it's all about. And then Onitsha, their primary purpose, they were in charge of the markets. They operated the markets. But also they look after all our shrines and deities in Onitsha. And they look after the welfare of the women, the governance of the women, the Fanaka. Unfortunately, for over 100 years, like Kishiro Onitsha, Omu Buonisi Ndi Igbo Onitsha. She is the leader of the woman, of the women group. And Omu has almost the same authority as Ezon Samuel, except over the women. She would dress like Ezon Onitsha, and in public events, she sits immediately to the left of Ezon Onitsha. That is the role of the Omu. We're in dialogue, and someday we'll get it back. Then, of course, I will, the Onitsha Youth Council, I think many of them are here, a very strong group, and their former leader, Honorable Ayamba, has done so well that the Anambra State government appointed him the Commissioner for Youth, and he's doing very, very well in that position. So that's our political setup. And the judiciary, birth stages, between two people, or between two groups. The job of the community is the first level. Then Onitsha of the community is the next level. Then Obi in council sits in the courts every Wednesday to adjudicate cases. And most cases are resolved at that level. Any appeal from there now comes to me as the final arbiter and the final ruler. But I can say to you that hardly I can count the number of cases in court to Igbo, and none of them has gone and come back to reverse the decision that the Obi of Onitsha, in consultation with the chiefs, has made. That is how we govern ourselves. Actually, one of the cases that went all the way to the Supreme Court, Justice Terry wrote a very strong note commending the Onitsha traditional judicial system. That if all other communities can do the same, then the workload of cases that go through the courts will reduce, and justice can be delivered faster. Onitsha, I said, the modern times started from the colonial and Christian era, and kept growing. Local governments were formed, the market, administration, etc. The peak, in my own eyes, as a little boy growing up, the 1950s and 1960s were probably the high points of Onitsha as a city. In terms of the sense of industry, other professionals and so on, the expansion of the city, Fega was built, as a brand new planned environment community. I have to confess that as a primary school student, I had Fega on Saturday, they give us 5 shillings after that. So we sent any money from the primary school and so on. So those were the great days. There were cinemas, there were dance bands, there were bars where people go and have a good time. People work very hard and so on. And above that, famous Onitsha market literature that are published, they're written and published within 1 week, Veronica My Love, etc., etc. Onitsha market literature, which several scholars have done their PhD thesis on Onitsha market literature. The largest collection of those literature is in the Hoover Institution at Stanford University. Okay? So I obviously, our ancestors created those literature, have to go to Hoover Institution to find out what is there. Now, this is what Chinua Achebe said of Onitsha market literature. One of the most intriguing questions concerning this literature, why did it happen in Onitsha? has, however, not yet been fully answered, and I suspect will never be. There is a mystery, you know. It is this area which interests me. A esoteric region from which creativity sallies forth at will to manifest itself. Get yourself. Say that Onitsha is a esoteric region from which creativity sallies forth to manifest itself. So all you can do is to speculate that Onitsha is such a phenomenon. This is actually writing about Onitsha in its glorious days when everything was bustling. The spokesman newspaper was there. Everybody wants to read. Some people read it upside down. And politics was growing. Education, study centers, bookshops on New Market Road. Black and Maxwell. People who are doing their intermediate law studies before they go overseas and so on. That was Onitsha for you. And Christmas time, New Year time, anyway, Carnival. From Old Market Road, down to New Valley Road North, and then back to New Market Road. Fantastic. Okay, and this is what the way Onitsha had been described in those days. Onitsha of yore. It is remarkable for its almost mythological evocation of local history and belief. Alison Anderson. And then J.G. Leclerc won the Nobel Prize in 2008. And he wrote a biographical novel titled Onitsha. How did the Frenchman get to Onitsha? His father was working in CFAO Onitsha, and he came as a young man. And what he saw eventually converted into a novel. And he described Onitsha. The Onitsha indigenous places high value on honor, decency, and amity. The Ecclesial. And then my friend Hank Esau, who is a newspaper columnist, said that those who knew Onitsha of yore around 1960s cannot forget its hidden allure, its mercantile exuberance, and unfeigned charm. Say like Venice, Lagos, Las Palmas, New Orleans or Mumbai, Onitsha had spirit and had gravitas. It had culture. Just as it had its city side and historical niche. These are the description of Onitsha. When Onitsha was in its glory, Asaba was similar. And we had the ferry that crossed between. Crossing the ferry itself was an experience on its own. And all of that. And Onitsha and Asaba were linked. We were growing side by side. Okay. Then came the Civil War. And everything changed. Civil War changed everything. Destruction. Physical destruction. But probably more damaging was the psychological destruction that Onitsha felt. Other communities in Anambra State, the southeast, Asaba was badly damaged. We all suffered the same thing. Okay. That's the turnaround. The same Hank Esau came back. Onitsha. So after the Civil War, Onitsha of yore was a fun place to be. However, much has changed now. Onitsha has lost its groove. From gravitas, lost its groove. Verve and much of its history. Onitsha remains as ever the sardonic city of drudge and enterprise. That so much effort yields little recompense, and quality of life only conveys the infinite mockery and paradox of this sometimes feral city. Still, Onitsha remains untranslatable and unreplicatable. You must visit to experience it. So if I ask ago, so where do we go from there? How do we re-engineer and reposition and restore Onitsha? I came to the throne in 2002, photo Broswelli, and I defined my philosophy for governance, traditional governance of Onitsha. as peace and reconciliation based on truth, transparency, truth and transparency as foundation for sustainable development. What to be transparent and what to reconcile. It's important that you must reconcile. We've been working on it for all this time. And 2017, we had several efforts, study groups, etc., etc. 2017, we set up what we call taking Onitsha to the next level. We had 15 study groups to study all aspects of Onitsha and come up with recommendations and so on. Then, after 1 year, we got the recommendations. We agreed on how to start the low-lying fruits that we can harvest. Then COVID came. A setback initially, but COVID got us thinking also, what after COVID? Because COVID reveals all social engagement on Onitsha. No marriages, no funerals, no title taking, and all of that. We realized how interconnected our local economy is to one another. If there's no ceremony, the have no job. The canopy have no job. The have no job. The have no job. Photographers and so on. And how do they restart after COVID? Some of them are so beaten down they couldn't restart again. So we started immediately, even during the COVID, to begin to think of post-COVID economic empowerment program. Post-COVID. I had a couple of studies, and this is what I said. Setting up the study group. That we need to support the struggling and budding entrepreneurs in our domain in weathering the post-COVID-19 economic and social challenges. That's the target that we set. Then, when the study was over, we set up what we call the Onitsha Advancement Foundation. And I said again, is to create and facilitate the development of programs and services that will foster a changed mindset, a participatory action, and empowerment in the lives of the Onitsha 22 and the community they serve. Okay. So we've been at it all along. We made a lot of progress and all that. On Sunday, we had our quarterly town hall meeting, where the Onitsha, wherever you are connected. 4 hours. We had people from 10 countries, the Onitsha, connected, where we discussed all these issues, map out the way forward. And then Onitsha Advancement Foundation is the platform for our development. We have 2 registered with Corporate Affairs Commission, 2 standalone institutions on entrepreneurship development and leadership. The other one on computer, IT development. Okay. Want to make Onitsha a hub for IT development. The third one, which has not come into place, is the finance, microfinance institution to fund these young entrepreneurs. But the cooperative program, which has been initially very successful, but we're wobbly right now. We're looking at it. We have a health and well-being program where we manage our health, educational program, all of this, even our internal security, we have our own vigilante group, not the AVG of the government, our own internal vigilante group to service our people. So challenges. Now, most of these programs, the health and educational program, apply to any child in Onitsha, benefits from our educational program, wherever it comes from. The health program, if you walk in, we have a walk-in health center. You can just walk in as a nurse there. We will attend to you and can call a doctor and all of that available. But there's a bigger Onitsha cosmopolitan system now that has grown around, that has merged even to Bosi, to Paul, to Gidi and all of that. Those ones present a totally different challenge. Okay? Population is growing, youth unemployment, the transient population on becomes a repository. But they sleep rough. Okay? General pay worker is terrible. Okay? The infrastructure has not grown. Infrastructure has not grown. You probably see some roads that were built in colonial times and so on and so forth. Inadequate and non-existent infrastructure, crime within, and Kenesia is there. Of course, environmental pollution, noise pollution, air pollution. Onitsha generates the largest IGR in the state, and I think that's next to nothing. All the markets, tax collected, we don't get money reinvested. And so those people being on Onitsha, and they're on Onitsha, and the majority now on Onitsha, who contribute to that IGR, don't get the benefit of the IGR. Roads, where they live, and so on and so forth. That's the situation that you face. But then Onitsha, being what it is in the eyes of international organizations, especially the UN Habitat. So in 2009, UN Habitat did a study, a structure plan for Onitsha and satellite towns to remap and redesign Onitsha. Residential areas, industrial areas, etc. Onitsha now is the cosmopolitan, which should include satellite communities, Bosi, Bo, Ukidi, Ikwalozinaka, Nsue, etc. They did that and presented it to our state government. Nothing. In 2010, at the Shanghai exhibition, Onitsha was designated one of the five fastest growing cities in the world, but with inadequate infrastructure, housing, roads, water supply, etc. And in 2012, UN Habitat came back again to do an urban profile report. First of all was the mapping up. The second time around was how to implement. And then, of course, nothing has happened. And in 2016, the World Health Organization dropped the bomb and described Onitsha as the most polluted city in the whole world. Air pollution. 2016. So, okay, so we have to continue to advocate. My proposal, which I submitted to the previous government, was to set up an Onitsha Metropolitan Development Authority, and empower it to take charge. Either do Onitsha, Greater Onitsha, we could even do Onitsha. Onitsha should be alone. Oka, Newi, should be development authorities, and so on. So it's been a long story, but I'm now at the conclusion. Thankfully, if you read the main lecture, there are several issues that are there that I don't have the answer to. But I flag them. I give my own opinion when it comes to. But there are basically 4 areas that I want to. I want to draw attention to in my conclusion. 1, it's important to establish the linkage between Igbo, Yoruba, Edo, and the other language groups. If you go back to that internal migration where we all took off from, and then broke up, if that is true. But the truth of the matter that the linguistic experts draw a connection between these people. Don't come together. They also will defeat you. I don't want to say much more about that because you can't headline. It's very, very important that I can buy my one day any bad relationships in the past, then we can fix it and amend it, knowing that getting you. Eduwa is a book, which is called I Don't Need To. That book is 700 pages long, and he made several claims about the history of Igbo, which had not received scholarly attention to authenticate it or otherwise. And he claimed there was a great empire called Adonidu that ended up, as Ile-Ife was the capital of that empire. And the Igbo were the dominant people, Igbo Nachi, Ile-Ife, Adonidu, until migration. What to authenticate it? Because it gives a new perspective to our relationships and who we are, where we came from. Third, from all indications, all of the southeast, Who is the chief of Yoruba land? Okay. And again, you see, you can build up relationships and bonds and figure out how we got to where we did. All of that. And then, of course, finally, the government mentioned already to pay attention to the re-engineering of the Onitsha metropolitan area. It's very, very important. Onitsha is the biggest city in Anambra State. You can't push it away. And if you keep drawing IGR, you don't reinvest. It's like milking a cow without feeding the cow will die. Okay. So that's my fourth recommendation. And finally, I want to the Center for Igbo Repository. Talk about digital library, etc., etc. Library. I want to announce for a start that museum, which we're building in Onitsha, has taken a step to digitize an entire academic and scholarly collection. Professor Richard Henderson and his wife, Helen Henderson, they are both social anthropologists, and all their academic life was devoted to the study of Onitsha. So they have manuscripts, they have scholarly papers, they have newspaper cuttings, they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photographs of Onitsha that don't exist anymore. Video recordings, traditional music, and such. They recorded everything. There is in his house, his library in Tucson, Arizona. I go there once a year, and we'll be recording, we'll be digitizing all of this. You know, it costs a lot of money, but it will preserve Onitsha. And the beauty of digitization is you can replicate. So, BC, a copy of the Henderson digital material will be presented to the Center for Igbo Repository as a start. Professor Henderson is about 93 years old and he still operates his website on Onitsha. amightytree.org. amightytree.org. You go there, the treasure of information on Onitsha. And then, of course, we will put together a collection of books on Onitsha by different authors and present to the library also. One of them is a book edited by Professor Kilun Zebu. Scholarly essays by different people. But the beauty of it for me is that it has close to 500 bibliographical references on Onitsha and Igbo. Bibliography, 500 items of bibliography. It's a treasure trove. All of that will come there. And finally, gratitude. This lecture, I take responsibility. Whatever I said, I take responsibility. But I benefited a lot from two people who are very close friends, who are academics, whose scholarly comments helped to enhance the quality of the lecture. And I said the lecture is about 61 pages long. Professor P.J. Eze of the University of Nigeria, Department of Anthropology, past president of the Anthropological Association of African Anthropological Association, is a good friend. And then, of course, Professor Jerry, who is Jerry, get it up. Yeah. They're my friends and they've helped me a lot. BJ was assigned to some assignment by the Federal Ministry of Education, so he couldn't be here. So that's it. By Dubai, Igbo, know thyself. Know thyself. If you don't know ourselves, we will take it. That's very, very important.